Good morning, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you to this year's World Brain Day program. We are honored to be your compares today. I'm Dr. Kalpana and this is Dr. Navada, both doctors currently working in the stroke unit. World Brain Day is observed annually on 22nd of July and the day is dedicated to raise awareness on brain health. The Department of Neurology of National Hospital Galle is organizing this event in collaboration with World Federation of Neurology, the Association of Sri Lankan Neurologists, and Galle Medical Association.
This year's theme, Brain Health for All Ages, reminds us the responsibility we carry as medical professionals to protect and to promote brain health across the lifespan. We are privileged to have with us a distinguished panel of speakers and esteemed guests today. Let's begin this inspiring morning with our welcome address.
To formally open today's session, I now invite Dr. Janaka Waidyasekara, Chair of the Organizing Committee and Consultant Neurologist, to deliver the welcome address and the introduction.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Neurology Unit, Galle National Hospital, and the Organizing Committee, let me welcome you all for this program. First and foremost, let me have the honor of welcoming a distinguished guest, which is Professor Tissa Wijeratne, who is the co-chair of the World Brain Day program and from the World Federation of Neurology. We are truly privileged by your presence today. Actually, it was you who planted the seed in my head to organize this event when we met a couple of months ago. So thank you, Tissa, for that inspiration. Next, let me welcome Dr. Ajanta Keshavaraj, President of the Sri Lankan Neurologists, who are joining with us at the moment online. We are so glad that you are joining with us today. I also take the pleasure in welcoming Professor M.B. Samaravikrama, President of the Galle Medical Association, whose continued support is deeply appreciated. A special word of welcome to our esteemed speakers today, Professor K.D. Pathirana, Dr. Samir Mohideen, and Dr.Thilina Munasinghe. Thank you for agreeing to share your expertise with us. And finally, to all of you in the audience who have chosen to be here today and have considered brain health worth your time, I offer my sincere thanks and a heartfelt welcome. World Brain Day is put on by the World Federation of Neurology. So I am glad and proud to say that this program today is part of a global event. The purpose or the objective of the World Brain Day is to promote brain health and prevention of neurological disorders. And this is an initiative, the World Brain Day is an initiative from the World Federation of Neurology. And this is in partnership with the WHO Global Action Plan on Neurological disorders for this decade, which was launched back in 2022. So you can see that it has become a priority worldwide. The WHO Action Plan has a vision, a world in which brain health is valued, promoted, and protected across the lifespan. Neurological disorders are prevented, diagnosed, and treated early, and preventing mortality and morbidity. And a world in which neurological disorders, and a world in which people affected by neurological disorders and their carers attain highest possible level of health with equal rights, opportunities, respect and autonomy. Now you see that brain health has become a priority and world has started considering brain health as a priority. Why? Because brain disorders are the leading cause of disability and the second leading cause of death. And it has been estimated that 40% of the world population is suffering from a neurological condition at any given time. To put that into perspective, 3 billion people at the moment are suffering from a neurological condition. Brain disorders affect a wide range of individual and societal functions. And as we all know, with the expansion of wider healthcare, with the improvements of healthcare and hence the expansion or rising of the elderly population, brain disorders are expected to rise in number due to the expansion of the elder aging population. And most importantly, the cost and the burden of neurological disorders are enormous. I have listed the neurological disorders with the biggest impact: stroke, neonatal brain damage, migraine, dementia, meningitis, epilepsy, nervous system malignancies, Parkinson's disease, and even autism spectrum disorders should be included here. Now, I have already mentioned that World Brain Day is dedicated to prevention. Why should prevention be so important? Because of these staggering numbers. 80% of the strokes are preventable. 40% of dementias can be prevented. And 20% of epilepsies are potentially preventable. Well, we have actually included dedicated one topic for stroke prevention. And there's another talk on dementia prevention. And I'm sure our speakers will touch upon epilepsy prevention as well. So I think that sets the stage for today's program. And just a reminder of this year's theme for World Brain Day: brain health for all ages. And I'm glad to say that we have lined up our lectures to align with this theme, brain health for all ages. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Waidyasekara, for those thoughtful opening remarks. Next, we are honored to welcome Professor M.B. Samaravikrama, Professor in Anatomy, Consultant Surgeon, and the current President of Galle Medical Association, to address the gathering.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all of you. And it is my pleasure and honor to welcome all of you on this important academic event. And this event is to mark the World Brain Day. And the Brain Day is dedicated, as mentioned by our organizing chair. It is to prevent brain diseases or neurological conditions and make awareness of neurological conditions among our community. And this is a program that is collaborating with Galle Medical Association, Association of Neurologists in Sri Lanka, and World Federation of Neurologists. So as a president in Galle Medical Association, I am honored to be a partner in this important academic event, because as we know, the brain health is very important. So making partner in this, so we are proud in because part of our goal in the Galle Medical Association is supporting and taking hand with continuous medical education, and so we collaborate with uh, regional as well as national academic bodies and medical associations in such academic events. So thank you very much for inviting us for this important academic event. So I take this opportunity to warmly welcome all the resource persons and esteemed guests as well as participants on behalf of the Galle Medical Association. And I take this opportunity to uh, greatly appreciate our organizing chair, Dr. Janaka, inviting us to take hand in this important event. So thank you, Dr. Janaka, organizing this event and inviting us to collaborate with you all. So saying that, I wind up here, and I hope this event be a success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Samaravikrama, for your valuable insights and continued support for brain health initiatives. We are now pleased to invite Dr. Ajanta Keshavaraj, Consultant Neurologist, Teaching Hospital Jaffna and President of the Association of Sri Lankan Neurologists, to share a special message with us.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, on behalf of the Association of Sri Lankan Neurologists, I would like to extend our sincere thanks for the organizers, especially Dr. Janaka Waidyasekara, Chair, Organizing Committee, and the Galle Medical Association, Karapitiya, as well as other collaborative, the World Federation of Neurologists. It is an honor to address you today as we organize the 12th Annual World Brain Day, themed this year as a brain health for all ages. This is being led by the Federation of Neurologists to emphasize our commitment to support brain health for all the individuals in every stages of life, beginning from the pre-conception age and continuing throughout the aging adult. Today we gather to unite healthcare professionals, families, patients, caretakers, and individuals to champion brain health for everyone. Various neurological disorders lead to major disability and the second leading cause of death worldwide. We have single brain to perform multiple tasks. Therefore, we have to prioritize the brain health throughout our lives, which is very crucial. Let us come together on this occasion to raise global awareness about the importance of brain health for every ages and stages of life. I encourage everyone to follow the Association of Sri Lankan Neurologists social media to help to spread the name World Brain Health for everyone. Once again, on behalf of the Association of Sri Lankan Neurologists, wishing you all the very best for the successful event. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Keshavaraj, for your continued effort in advancing neurology across Sri Lanka.
It is now our pleasure to invite Professor Tissa Wijeratne, co-chair of the World Brain Day program of the World Federation of Neurology and the director and chair of the Department of Neurology and Stroke Services at Western Health, Melbourne, Australia, to deliver a special message. He will be joining us virtually.
It is an honor and privilege to visit your beautiful city. Galle has a rich history, and Galle has a rich history of neurology also. And it is important to reflect that all the speakers that you have listened to so far, if we were to go back several decades back, none of us probably had a clue that we were going to be doctors, be interested in neurology or anatomy or surgery for that matter. We do need to reflect how this come about. It goes without saying we did all because of our parents' brains, because of our teachers' brains, and because of our own brain. As you can see, brain health and brain itself is of enormous importance for humanity or Homo sapiens as a species. Let me take back to the history of World Brain Day that I was privileged to be part of as we were conceiving the idea around 2010-2011. So a day like today, 22nd of July 1957, our organization, World Federation of Neurology, was born. The original inception of idea of establishing an international neurology group was around 1911, 1912. You need to realize that even 1911, 12, even 1957, traveling between two places is hard. But it has become much easier now. You have your president, Dr. Ajantha Keshavaraj, talking to you, I believe, from Jaffna. And I am also a Sri Lankan. I am also a life member of the Association of Sri Lankan Neurologists also. And I'm talking to you from Melbourne. So the technology has made travel, physical and virtual easier. All these things occurred because of brain health. But as you heard from both my colleagues, that brain health is at peril at the moment. You already heard the numbers. 1 in 2 of us, 1 in 3 of us are having a brain disorder. This is the greatest threat for humanity. We are very familiar with the infrastructure, economy, jobs, banks, salaries, petrol price, etc. All these things are driven by the capital that we generate from brain. This is why we decided that it is important to celebrate the day for brain, as it is our brain which basically is the essence of us humans or humanity. Yes, world is in a sort of a difficult situation at the moment, geopolitically as well as health-wise, but we can resurrect this by putting our minds and brains together. I think it is incredibly satisfying to see that the beautiful Galle and the prestigious Galle Medical Association and prestigious Association of Sri Lankan Neurologists are putting all the sources together and bringing you all to this audience to talk about brain health across all ages today. I saw the beautiful program that you put forward with terrific speakers who will entertain you and enlighten you on different aspects of conditions and the issues that are pertinent to brain health. We should not forget that before our moms realized that they missed their period when they were pregnant with us in their tummy, the first components of the brain were established. The eye, which is a window to the brain, an extension of the brain itself, those sort of sockets or the bulbs appear from neural tube at day 10. That is 2 weeks before my mum and Ajantha's mum and Janaka's mum and surgery department head Dr. Jayavikrama's mum realized that they missed the period when we were pregnant in their tummy. So you can see that biologically brain health is important from preconception to old adulthood. Again, my warmest congratulations to all of you, including ASN, Galle Medical Association and Neurology Department and the entire team for putting this together and making brain health a household name in Galle and the Karapitiya Hospital and eventually in the community. I think it is important to remind you that if you log into the World Brain Day webinar today, this is our 12th campaign. I'm incredibly happy to say that World Brain Day is coming of age. You will hear from WHO, You will hear from United Nations. You will hear from all regional leaders, all 6 regions tonight at 10 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I know it is way too late for Sri Lanka, but I strongly encourage you to just Google World Brain Day now and look for World Federation Neurology website, and you can register for the Zoom call, and you will get the webinar delivered to your smartphone within hours of completion of the seminar, and you can watch it later on. So make World Brain Day count. Let us make brain health a household name, because there's absolutely no health or no economy or no nation or no world without brain and brain health. And we can change the statistics by working together. Hence the intersectoral global action plan. And you are already showing the world what can be done by connecting all these dots and putting resources together. Again, my deepest gratitude to good friend and colleague Janaka for inviting me and organizing this, and I congratulate all of you wholeheartedly as a fellow Sri Lankan, wishing you all the very best to take this to the world, and I also encourage you to write a detailed report and take some pictures and send them to World Neurology, and we can publish them and take all over the world to show what Sri Lanka is capable of. And all the very best, and enjoy the day, and be nice to each other. We are here in this planet for a short period of time, and we must leave our legacy. And what else other than promoting brain health for all ages, which is basically the essence of humans and humanity. Have a wonderful day, and enjoy the day, and you've got the really great line of speakers. I've listened to all of them in the past, and they're just absolutely terrific, and I'm sure it will be an entertaining, enjoyable, super brain healthy day today. And thank you very much for having me, and all the very...
Thank you, Professor Wijeratna, for that global perspective and your leadership in the field of neurology. Before we move on to our next segment, we will now play a short video message from the World Federation of Neurology that captures the spirit and global impact of Brain World Day.
Brain health underlies our ability to communicate, make decisions, solve problems, and to live a productive and useful life. Arguably, the brain is the single most valuable organ in the human body. So what makes the brain healthy? Exercise, sleep, environment, diet, and access to care all contribute to a healthy brain. Regular exercise has been shown to slow age-related brain deterioration and maintain cognitive abilities that typically decrease with age. Exercise helps lower blood pressure, avoiding vascular disease leading to stroke, and helps maintain a healthy supply of blood pumping to the brain. Exercising mentally is just as important as physical exercise. Examples of this include education, continued learning, and games like chess and Sudoku. Humans spend about 1/3 of each day sleeping, and sleep is key to brain health. Sleep plays an important role in the function of the brain, the immune system, and many other systems in the body. Consistent restful sleep, around 6 to 7 hours, gives the brain time to dispose of metabolic waste and optimize memory. Sleep keeps you sharp, focused, and able to make thoughtful decisions. The environment around you can also influence your brain health. Environmental toxins in water, food, and air can all lead to neurological issues such as stroke, neurodevelopmental, and neurodegenerative disorders. Another type of environmental risk is repetitive or major head trauma or hypoxia in extreme sports, creating an injurious setting for your brain cells. In the same way that diet's important for the body, it's important for the brain. While eating a varied, balanced diet that includes fruit, vegetables, protein, and whole grains that nourish your body and brain, a diet rich in processed foods, salt, and refined sugars can promote inflammation and vascular disease, resulting in tissue damage. Finally, the availability and accessibility of care and exposure to preventative programs are important for brain health. This helps catch issues early, ensure proper treatment, and prevent further problems. The brain is a complex and fascinating organ that should be taken care of from time in utero to the life you live today and beyond. Because access to care is so important, medical systems and public health initiatives play a significant role in overall brain health. Along with the support of patients, neurologists and advocates, organisations like the World Health Organization and the World Federation of Neurology contribute to furthering worldwide brain health initiatives and research into brain disease prevention and treatment. Our goal is to ensure that all people, no matter where they are located, have access to quality neurological care.
Let us now welcome Dr.Thilina Munasinghe, Consultant Pediatric Neurologist, to speak on the importance of nurturing brain health from the beginning of life.
So, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to address on the World Brain Day, a day that reminds us about the incredible complexity, resilience, and the wonder of human brain. So the topic I have selected is to give my insights on nurturing brain health from the beginning. I mean, from the very first heartbeat, so our brain starts a lifelong journey of the growth, learning, and adaptability. The early few years of life laid the main foundation for not only for the physical growth or the physical well-being, but also for the emotional and the cognitive resilience. So the nurturing brain health from the outset, it's not only a medical concern, but it also a societal commitment to empower the future generations, right? So with that, we'll begin our journey. Yes, the brain development occurs in various stages. In fact, about 5 stages. So it starts with the prenatal, newborn, early childhood, adolescence, and the adulthood. So as you already know, the bulk of the brain growth has already been happened even before the time of birth. So once the baby is born, there's a rapid phase is kicked off in terms of brain growth and the development, but only slight of growth will be happen even in the adolescent phase, but there's after, in the initial phases of the life, is the most crucial part in terms of brain development and the growth. This mainly shows the development of important brain areas in terms of the biological timeline in various stages, right? So at the outset, what really happens is our body will develop some nerve cells, which is known as neurulation. Then they will be rapidly expand in number, which will be known as a neuronal proliferation. And then they will be assigned to a specific task, which is known as a neuronal differentiation. Once that has been done, those nerves will be migrate or will be transferred for a specific areas of the body, which if the brain, which is known as neuronal migration. And once that will happen, then they'll make connection with each other to improve the brain function and the connectivity. Later on, the myelination happens. So that's what's really gone on all this throughout the brain growth period. So as you already know, the bulk of this thing happens in the very early part of the life. So same thing again, it's so much dynamic. The main thing happens, as you already seen in this graph, towards the early part of the life, and everything is being reinforced by the experience that you get in this lifetime. So the main experience happen in the early part and also throughout your life, when you are even adult or you're an adolescent, that experiences are the one that will help to build the brain architecture along with the early brain development. So this is a small video, just the thing I just want to say. A newborn calf. So what really happens there? So just some breakdown, that's fine. So as you could see, at 45 minutes of life, they can walk. They can sit, but just wobbly, but still they could walk. But yes, human babies can't do that, right? So they have a long way to go. So they become capable, they become able with the time. So they require some time in order to, because at the time of birth, your brain and spine is not connected. So that's why you can't really walk. So the time only the connection will happen. And then they develop the power in their neck muscles, the trunk muscles, and the girdle muscles, which will allow them to do their physical functioning task. So it's a gradual process. The child development is the foundation for the prosperous community. Right? So that's very crucial because early childhood development laid the main foundation for the future academic achievement, economic productivity, and the societal well-being as well. So the investment of early childhood development is not in vain because that in turn will give regards or give you some more gains in terms of reducing social costs and improving living conditions. So investing in early childhood development is very much important. So the mindful thing should be it happens in the very early part. Within the first 5 years is the crucial time window. The two main factors, the nature and the nurturing, are the one that really improve to build the brain, the genes and the experience. The social, cognitive, emotional development are quite intervened. That means those things should be present together in order to have an achievement. For example, for a child to develop cognitive skills, that child should have emotional security. And in terms of having language development, those kids should have a good social interaction. So these things are very much intervened. You can't take them separately. And the most important thing is there are some things that could damage the brain architecture, which is known as the toxic stress. So that could be infection, poor nutrition. Sometimes it could be the environment that could also impose toxic stress for the developing brain. So the building healthy brain architecture, the two main ingredients are the genes and the experiences. Genes are the hardware and the experience are the software which fine-tune our brain performance. The dramatic growth of the neurons and the remodeling and the architecture formation that also happens in the very early part. This slide shows that these are the electron microscopic view of the nerve cells of the brain biopsy. So, I mean, at the time of birth, a baby has nearly about 100 billion nerve cells. That means 111 zeros. That's a huge number. The number of nerve cells at the time will be mainly determined by your genetics. And once the baby is born, the brain efficacy is mainly determined by the number of connections you have. It's not by the number of nerve cells, but the number of connections. That means the number of synapses you have. So at the initial part, you have about 700 synapses being formed per second. So that's the very rapid rate of synapse formation, right? So this will be happen only for a period of 2 to 4 years. Right? So that is the very crucial window of opportunity to make connection, to increase the brain efficacy. But once that period is gone, there will be a natural process which is known as synaptic pruning. So if you are not being trained, if you are not being used in that particular circuit, the nature eventually will get rid of it, which is known as a synaptic pruning. So if you want to achieve good, better development outcome, the things has to be done early. So these are some other additional data to support that importance of having early interventions in terms of brain nurturing. So these are the MRI images. So at the age of 1 month, you see it's very naive brain, less convexities, more space. But when it becomes 2 months, there's a dramatic change. And by the time of 28 months, that means about 2.5 years, the MRI appearance of a child is more or less similar to an adult. And in terms of brain structure formation, the bulk of brain has been already been formed. What is really matters after down the timeline is they merely increase in the force to increase the brain capacity. In terms of brain weight, nearly about 80 to 90% of brain weight is formed within the first 2-3 years of life. After that, there are only about 10% of brain growth, or brain weight, in fact. So, I mean, the main things are, there are 3 main important factors I already mentioned that will be quite crucial in terms of increasing brain efficacy. The first one is the number of nerve cells, number of connections, and the quality of those connections. So the number of nerve cells will be determined by your genetics, the nature, and the number of synapses and their quality is mainly driven by your experience or the nurturing. So there are some factors that really affect for the development or the nurturing part. So this fishbone diagram shows what factors really influence on the child development. So there are the social and cultural factors also plays a huge role, the parenting style, and the parent relationships, and the nutrition, even it could be antenatal, perinatal, and the postnatal and early childhood, and also the environment, whether the safe environment, risk-free environment, reduce infection-free environment. So those are so crucial in terms of achieving the fullest potential. So that's a small video. I just want to highlight the importance of the experiences, having experience in the early part to build the brain architecture.
A child's experiences during the earliest years of life have a lasting impact on the architecture of the developing brain. Genes provide the basic blueprint, but experiences shape the process that determines whether a child's brain will provide a strong or weak foundation for all future learning, behavior, and health. During this important period of brain development, billions of brain cells called neurons send electrical signals to communicate with each other. These connections form circuits that become the basic foundation of brain architecture. Circuits and connections proliferate at a rapid pace and are reinforced through repeated use. Our experiences and environment dictate which circuits and connections get more use. Connections that are used more grow stronger and more permanent. Meanwhile, connections that are used less fade away through a normal process called pruning. Well-used circuits create lightning-fast pathways for neural signals to travel across regions of the brain. Simple circuits form first, providing a foundation for more complex circuits to build on later. Through this process, neurons form strong circuits and connections for emotions, motor skills, behavioral control, logic, language, and memory during the early critical period of development. With repeated use, these circuits become more efficient and connect to other areas of the brain more rapidly. While they originate in specific areas of the brain, the circuits are interconnected. You can't have one type of skill without the others to support it. Like building a house, everything is connected, and what comes first forms a foundation for all that comes later.
So, this is a bit of a complex. I'm not going to go into details. So, this really highlights the fantastic ability of the brain's adaptability, the neuroplasticity, how the brain could adapt. So, the adaptation is mainly determined by the number of connections, the quality of connection, and how strong are the connections are. So, that these connections are the one that allows you to do a function in a precision way. So there are lots of type of connection. You have long distance, imbalance modules, and rich clubs and hubs, various types of connection in various areas of the brain connecting each other, having lightning fast electrical signals going through the brain. Everything is very much dependent on the number of connection, the quality of connections you have. So all these connections to develop, you should have adequate healthy experiences in their lifetime. So few principles of early childhood development. All areas of development is important. It could be gross motor, fine motor, cognitive, speech, language, social. Everything is important. They are so intervened. And it follows sequential pattern. Especially the motor development, it goes in the cephalocaudal, head to down. They initially get the head control, then the trunk control, then the girdle control. And they follow proximal-distal pattern. Initially they get the proximal power, and later on they will be able to do the distal activities. And they proceed at a varying speed and result from the maturity and the experience. Same thing again, early experience has profound effects, and they advance when they are being challenged. So that is also crucial. Children need to be challenged, right? So they need to be challenged in order to learn. You can't just cage them and let them develop. No, you have to challenge them, providing a safe security, safe environment. And it occurs in secure relationships, and the environment will be influenced by multiple social and cultural background. Children learn in variety of ways. They learn by looking at us. They learn by observing or imitating, or sometimes they learn by doing play. So the play is an important aspect of learning in children. So these slides mainly show, the two main settings where brain nurturing should be done. The bulk of the baby, like most of the babies who's born, will be discharged, their home environment. So these early nurturing, early caring of the brain health should be done at the setting. But sometimes, some proportion of babies might be retained in the hospital in their first few days, sometimes weeks, or even months, because of the medical concern. So that part is also very crucial as healthcare professional to look after their brain health. So that will bring us the concept of the nurturing care. So what is meant by nurturing care is the brain health is mainly determined by 5 interrelated, indivisible factors. So they need to be required for a child to achieve their fullest potential. So which include the good health, good nutrition, responsive caregiving, safety and security, and the opportunities of learning. So those 5 concepts are so much crucial. Yeah, I know this is a busy slide just to highlight that children grow fast, so changing and so fascinating to watch as well. I mean, there are 3 things in this world that you never get bored by looking at it. First one is the sea, second one is the elephant because they always change, and the third one is the child because they always change. So fascinating to watch what they're doing. So they initially get their trunk control, and then they get head control, their trunk control which allow them to sit, and then they get that girdle control which allow them to stand, walk, and do all sorts of fancy complex tasks. In terms of fine motor, so they get their hand motor skills. So they initially get the midline orientation, and then they start reaching for object, grabbing things, transferring, and then they start doing pointing, playing, cube skills, drawing skills, which comes gradually with their development. And the vision is also quite important in childhood development. So just a small video to highlight how the vision develop in babies. So there's no point in hanging these colorful court mobiles in newborn babies because they don't perceive colors, right? So at the outset, they only perceive black, white, and sometimes red. They should be mainly patterned, not to be linear. The pattern, curvilinear ones are fine, and they should be kept in a particular distance about at least less than 1 feet long, right? And they mainly prefer the face. So the visual stimulation at the outset, the best thing is to use the mother's face, right? Because they recognize face much more better than any other thing. So that is how they see the world. Right? It's quite fascinating, isn't it? Like how the visual fields expand, how the clarity improved, how the color perception improved. So just don't misinterpret that they start to see their father around 7 or 8 months age. This is not the case because that's mainly to highlight the fact that the distance, the field improvement, right? So they also see the father within the early part. Right? So the color perception comes later. So there's no point in using colored thing within the first 3 months to stimulate baby's visual field. Yes, the social stimulation, social development is also quite crucial. The social smile, the strange anxiety, the peekaboo, and all sorts of this play. Imaginary play, solitary play, group dynamic play comes in gradually when they are being challenged and when they are being experienced new things. So these things are quite crucial to provide at the home environment, these situations. So these environment, if possible, challenge them at every setting to have a better brain health. Right. So then the second part is quite different from the home environment, the NICU setting or the hospital settings, right? So the hospital environment is quite different from the home environment. So the main caregiver would be the healthcare staff. So we need to be mindful the things that we should do and we should not do. Sometimes the slightest small thing we do might have a lasting impact on their brain architecture development. So with that concept that nurturing care, so in a NICU setting or postnatal ward, it's our duty to provide the babies with a healing environment, because hospital environment is not purely a healing environment, because sometimes you have this lots of toxic things, toxic sound, toxic light, toxic smell, toxic touch. So those things are quite, hamper the development of the early brain. So it's our duty to provide a healing environment for all 5 senses for the babies. So in a NICU setting, the common insults that could damage the brain is hypoxia, infection, hemorrhage, hypoglycemia, hypothermia. So those are well-known things. Everybody knows these things. But have you ever thought the toxic light, the sound, the pain, the touch, the smell, frequent disturbance, poor positioning, everything can damage the brain. Right? So those are the very crucial things. Okay? Sound. right? So the American Academy of Pediatrics, the recommended newborn sound level is 45 decibels. So that means the sound in a library. So I mean, when you walk through along the near the NICU, sometimes you can hear the alarm beeping. So that is not a 45 decibel sound, right? So that is very much detrimental. You don't need to have an alarm going on like that. So we have to make sure the sound level are kept to the minimum level that is required. Yeah, I'm not going to turn down this slide. So I know this is very difficult. Try to look at this slide for about 30 seconds. Right? It's quite difficult for us. Think a newborn baby or preterm baby before 32 weeks of life who doesn't have their pupil response. Right? So they have very much difficulty in controlling the light. So sometimes at the NICU or postnatal, we are just keeping the child just under light. Or sometimes when you are doing a procedure, you just flash the light without covering them their eyes. So those things really affect their development or development of brain architecture. At the same time, the frequent disturbance, you should not all the time in the ward round just go and disturb a baby. So it has to be clustered the care because frequent disturbance also hamper their sleep, which will alter their developmental outcome. And also you need to position them in a correct way, which is known as a nesting posture in order to have proper neuronal development. So all these things are quite crucial. So to sum up the things, so the brain development happens most part in the early, and the remodeling and the neural structure formation also occurs early, ideally within the first 4 or 5 years of life. The experiences and the genes, the nature and nurture, build the brain architecture. So the caring of the brain health should be done in 2 main settings, at home and NICU settings, and providing a healing environment is quite crucial, and the nurturing care is utmost important in order to have a child to have their fullest potential. So, I mean, as a pediatric neurologist, most of the babies does not require help. They just go and they thrive, they receive their fullest potential. But sometimes some babies might require our help, especially babies who are at risk, mainly who require, stormy neonatal period. So they need to be early identified and initiate an early intervention program. So this program has been initiated by Dr. Galle Pathirana. We are continuing his good work. So, currently, worldwide, the mean age of diagnosis of CP is about 24 months, right? 19 to 24 months. With this screening program, we can narrow it down to at least about 6 to 7 months. So the importance of that thing is we have a good window of opportunity to initiate our intervention for that child to reach the fullest potential. For suppose a child who has been diagnosed CP around 2 years, there's only about a couple of years more for us to intervene. But if we are able to diagnose them around 6 to 7 months, we have more time for brain to change, brain to develop correct pattern to reach their fullest potential. So that is the important thing for early identification and the intervention. Yes, the brain health doesn't occur at the latter part or the middle part, it happens in the very early part. So it's very important to have the head start. No point in waiting, because having head start will have a better outcome with outshine from all of the others. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Munasinghe, for highlighting how foundational pediatric care is to lifelong brain health. Up next is Dr. Samir Mohideen, Consultant Neurologist, who will speak to us about the prevention of stroke, a subject very close to us at Stroke Unit.
Good morning to you all. I think we are moving from little brains to little bigger brains. As you heard from Thilina, most of the work or the development of the brain occurs during the small age. So once you're above a certain age, I think there's not much you can do. So we have to protect what we have after some time. So all the hard work is done during the pediatric or the small age group. So we'll have to protect whatever we have afterwards. So how can we protect it? That's what I'm going to maybe talk to you about, and let's see how we go. So as we know, the mantra prevention is better than cure. Even though cure sounds very attractive, you suddenly give diagnose a disease and you give medicines to cure it. Prevention is always better than cure. So of course, as you know, prevention has many stages. The primordial stage, primary prevention, secondary, and tertiary. So the last stage is tertiary, where you have the disease, you are looking for complication, try to prevent complications, which is actually a costly affair, time-consuming affair. So you rather not have the disease or detect it early. That's what we are trying to do with primary prevention and secondary prevention. So when it comes to stroke, everyone knows heart attack. Heart attack, even you ask the distant person in a difficult to reach area, they know heart attack. But if you say brain attack, they'll be wondering, what are you talking about? So actually stroke is a brain attack. So most important, we have to spread the message, stroke is a brain attack which is preventable. Because if it's a chest pain, everyone rushes to the hospital. Stroke, they sometimes keep them till the next day. So there's one study done, if the man has a stroke, the wife brings the person to the hospital faster. But if the wife has a stroke, husband says, we'll bring little later. So for the men, it's always protective to have a good wife. So that's why family is important. If you have a stroke, you'll be brought to hospital faster. Right, coming to stroke. Yeah, so stroke is a brain attack. That's the most important message. So brain attack is a stroke. We need to bring to hospital in case someone has a stroke, and it is preventable. So if you look, stroke is the most common cause of death, second most common cause of death, and third most common cause of disability adjusted lifestyle. And highest stroke is in the South Asia region. So as you know, South Asia region, the education is poor, the economy is poor. So stroke is not a disease among the rich, if you really look at it. It's a disease among in the low economic countries. So if you look, if there's a 1 million people, let's be about 2,400 strokes a year. And 30%, almost 30% will die. And another 46% will be dependent, another 25% dependent. So that's more than 50% either death or dependent due to stroke. That's a big impact for the family as well as the country as well. So in Sri Lanka, it's the third leading cause of hospital death. 1 in 100 within Colombo. This is the study done in Colombo. And around 40 people die daily from stroke. And high blood pressure is the most commonest cause, and 65% have to give up after a stroke. So sometimes you forget, stroke is not only a burden for us, for the person, it's a burden for the family, not like in other countries which has good social support. We rely on generational support, where when someone has a stroke, the whole family gets involved. They are the caregivers, because we do not have enough social support. So I think stroke prevention is the most important thing. So as we know, there are two types of main strokes. One is the type we call, when there's a bleed, call an intracerebral hemorrhage, or when there's an occlusion, we call a ischemic stroke. So the ischemic stroke is the majority, 80 to 85%, with bleeding being around 15 to 20%. So the question is about, there are a lot of myths and truths about stroke. So first question is, most people think is stroke cannot be prevented. As we heard, stroke can be prevented. In how many percentage? 10%, 20%, 30%? I think we learned from the first slide when Dr. Janaka said, stroke can be prevented in 80% of cases. Imagine if you can prevent a disease 80%, we should all strive for that. That's the most important thing. Then there was a myth, no treatment for stroke. As you remember, in old days, the stroke patient was in the diarrhea quadrant with not much attention, thinking, okay, stroke, what can be done? So unfortunately, that was how stroke was made many, many years ago, due to lack of understanding and treatment available. So again, a myth is stroke affects only elderly. It is not true. Now, a lot of younger strokes are seen in the population. Stroke happens in the heart, correct or wrong? And stroke recovery only happens in the first few months. So people think if you don't recover now, there's no hope. Strokes are rare. I think it is not rare. And strokes are not hereditary. People think strokes can't be inherited. It is inherited. So if stroke symptoms go away, sometimes you don't have to see a doctor. As you know, TIAs can be the precursor for a larger stroke. So these are all myths. So the truth is 80% of strokes are preventable. 80%, imagine. If someone says you can prevent a disease 80%, you'll go for it. Just that we don't dedicate enough. So as we know, we can treat acute strokes. In Sri Lanka, we have thrombolysis, and in some hospitals, thrombectomies also. And stroke is called a brain attack. If you read it properly, I have misspelled it. It's called, I was misspelled it. So if your brain was alert, right? So stroke is called brain attack, right? And it one of the leading causes of death. So these are the facts, and these are the myths. So the quickest way for everyone to diagnose stroke is the way we call the FAST. FAST is face as a asymmetry, arms are weak, speech, and timing very important. And of course, we have added two others called BFAST, which has balance and visual issues as well. So if someone presents with acutely with any of these things, you are immediately sent to the acute treatment unit. So imagine, we heard from Thilina, we have 100 billion neurons and synapses form every few seconds. 1 second, if example, someone has a stroke and per second you lose 32,000 neurons lost. For synapse loss, 230 million per second this is. And you age by 8.7 hours. This is for a second. So every minute of a stroke is very valuable. So per minute, 3.1 weeks. And for a large stroke, you age by 36 years. Of course, these are, I think, done on a pathological samples, looking at aging. But still, important thing is, if you prevent a stroke, is more valuable. But if you have a stroke, these are the repercussions you'll have. And of course, if you don't treat a stroke, you'll age by, according to this study, 36 years. Imagine, if you want to go old by 36 years within a day. Right, what are the risk factors? So the most important risk factor is high blood pressure. So the question is, so then there are other risk factors like smoking, diabetes, high cholesterol, drinking, high fat diet, lack of exercise, and obesity. I think all these factors, you can manage most of it by your own. So high blood pressure is the most important modifiable risk factor. 1 in 2 strokes or even heart attacks can be prevented by blood pressure. So important, how do you manage blood pressure? I think important in some hospitals or some areas, they have blood pressure clinics where you can just spontaneously go check blood pressure and come in the rural areas to prevent blood pressure. And of course, there is poor education among the public regarding importance of checking blood pressure even when you're asymptomatic. Because a lot of people think most blood pressure will get a headache. Not always. A lot of people don't check their blood pressure. They check their blood pressure when they have a complications. If you look at most stroke patients, they didn't check blood pressure for many, many years. I think checking blood pressure, advising check blood pressure routinely, even the young, because this is an asymptomatic disease in most. This is very important. Of course, other important measures are to reduce salt intake to prevent increasing blood pressure. Then physical inactivity. You all are culprits. Now, while I was seated, I got a message on my phone, stand up, sitting for too long. I think we are sitting for too long. So I think maybe every 30 minutes, standing up, walking around would do a lot of help. So actually now for us being doctors, nurses, I think we can easily do this. So they did a study on hotel workers, who makes your bed. So they got a study and checked. These workers are working, but their health is not great. So they got a group of workers and said 50% educated, you do the same work, but think you're doing this as an exercise. Going to work, lifting the bed, lifting the person, taking the food. And they realized after about 3 months, just because educating them by doing the same work in a more, mindful fashion, they converted their normal work into almost like an exercise. And their health improved. Their weight reduced, blood pressure reduced, blood sugar improved. I think that you all can do. Maybe mindfully work when you're doing something, think, okay, this may be like an exercise. I'm going to the ward, doing a ward now like an exercise. Maybe going to see the director, walk a little faster, make it like an exercise. Maybe while you're sitting, maybe stand and talk, I don't know. So maybe small things we can do, we can convert our life into more of like a exercise and work. So we don't have to maybe work out after work, which we don't have time. Right? Okay. So very important, physical inactivity. Increased stroke, as you know. So doing nothing is not good at all. Doing something is better than doing nothing. That's the important message. Do something. Keep on doing something. So of course, ideally, do 150 minutes of exercise per week. So I tell patients, just what's the exact word? Give 50 minutes of your life per day for yourself. That's the most important thing. So 15 minutes per day for you. The remaining 23 hours and 45 minutes to your wife, children, work. So 50 minutes for you, just at least walking. Very important. It doesn't have, you don't have to run, you don't have to do a lot of heavy running. Just walking 50 minutes a day reduces the risk of stroke, diabetes, hypertension, and all other major cardiovascular risk factors. So of course, if we can do in addition, maybe 2 days a week of muscle strengthening, maybe a little cardio like 10 minutes a week might help overall. So message is again, exercise. So what kind of moderate physical exercise? We all do walking, gardening, hiking, I don't think we are doing, but dancing. We can dance maybe at home. Cycling and active, maybe cricket, football. So I learned maybe dancing is good when you have a small one, put music, dance with him, right? So maybe these small things might carry a big effect in your life, physical activity. Of course, physical activity helps in a lot of other things, diabetes, as I said, depression, even dementia prevention, heart disease, and all. So physical activity, it reduces the risk of stroke on its own by 25 to 30%. So very important if we can all get physically active. Maybe after this lecture, I'll also try to get more physically active, and we all have a role to play. Of course, how can we help? I think a doctor, nurse, or even a health staff just telling someone exercise, 1 in 4 will go and do exercise. That's the power of our words. Just telling, do exercise. That's enough. Some people will just say, doctor kiwa exercise karana garan ganne. But 1 in 4 will do it, even in a small amount. So it's important as being health professionals to educate the public importance of exercise. Just tell, do exercise, that's all. If you want, you can elaborate further. So small words help, because even though our words might not value to among us, the patients take every word we say as gold. So very important, the message to give patients about exercise. Of course, smoking. As you know, now a cigarette is 150 rupees a cigarette, I think in Sri Lanka. If someone smokes 10 cigarettes a day, 45,000 rupees a month. Per year, that's 540,000 rupees an year. They could have done something else. That's how costly smoking 10 cigarettes a day. There are plenty smoking 20, some 30, or even someone less. So the cost of loss of resources due to cigarette smoking is immense. So I think cigarette smoking is one of the worst things someone can do. Of course, as we know, smoking can cause again heart disease, cancer, and increased risk. Again, like exercise, if you tell the patient, just stop smoking, 10% will stop. Again, the power of word, health, doctor, nurse, they have done a study, just saying stop smoking, that's all. So your duty is to at least say stop smoking. They will stop. 10% will spontaneously stop. So of course, again, as I said, if you elaborate further on stop smoking, how to stop, when to stop, what is the alternative, they'll stop even more. But if you don't have time, just say stop smoking. That will reduce 10% of people who will smoke. As you know, from the time you stop smoking, benefit starts. Within 20 minutes, they say heart rate, blood pressure might improve. Within 2 weeks, lung functions might improve. Within 1 year, risk of getting coronary heart disease reduces by 50%. And 5 years, of course, the other risk factor is cancer. 5 years, oral cancer will reduce. At 10 years, risk of dying from lung cancer reduces. At 15 years, you are almost equivalent to a non-smoker for risk for heart disease. So I know smoking is a risk factor, but there is hope when you stop. That's the most important message. Then diet and nutrition. Of course, everyone talks about the Mediterranean diet. It sounds easy for us. We are living in a country surrounded by ocean, which of course we don't have enough access to fish or nuts. So the important thing is good meals, healthy meals are of course the natural meals, fruits, vegetables, nuts. These are the important ones. And of course the processed ones, which we like to eat, chips, fish fingers, whatever fried, over the counter, quickly available ones are generally not good. If the food is available within a few minutes on your table, that means it's processed. That means it's not good for your health generally. So good diet and nutrition is very important. Then low salt, high potassium. So if you can see, 1 teaspoon of salt is 5 grams. That's the daily requirement for a day. If you look breakfast, if you have cereal, that has 1.2 grams. A small chips, 1.1 gram. Lunch, 3.2. Snack, 3.3. Dinner, more than 15 grams a day. So as you know, high salt intake is the most likely reason for high blood pressure if there's no genetic or inherited underlying cause. So a normal meal, 15 grams of salt is 3 times the requirement of salt requirement for an individual person. So I think we had again actively cut down on salt use. Maybe why do you bring salt? Or use alternate, maybe use lime when you're adding to get the salty taste in food. So very important to cut down on salt. Of course, then foods high in potassium, like avocados, bananas, potatoes, spinach, fish, juices, especially the citrus ones, have high potassium. High potassium is generally heart and brain healthy. Of course, then BMI and stroke. As you know, the higher the BMI because of obesity, the higher the risk of stroke. Not only stroke, any cardiovascular disease. Of course, then diabetes. Again, a modifiable risk factor. As a disease, you need to control diabetes to prevent stroke. Then there are cardiovascular diseases which you need to diagnose, example, atrial fibrillation, maybe an MI, heart disease, atherosclerosis, and carotid stenosis. These all can lead to stroke. Of course, AF diagnosis is very important medically and clinically because it increases the risk of stroke by 5 times. So these are the main risk factors I think we need to address. Things preventable are easy to address but difficult to do. Especially exercise, stop smoking, and good diet are the 3 essential preventable factors which we need to address. Of course, there are so many other small preventable like vaccination, maybe taking preventive medication, maybe an aspirin some people recommend if you have a high risk group, or finding genetic causes are all very rare, but again preventable cause of stroke. So I think I'm going to leave you here and say most importantly, prevention is better than cure. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Mohideen, for that powerful reminder of how prevention begins with awareness.
To begin our next session, I'd like to invite Dr. Janaka Waidyasekara once again, this time to speak on the vital role of sleep in brain health.
Good morning, everyone. I am going to talk to you on sleep and brain health. Enjoy the honey-heavy dew of slumber. This is from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. Actually, this is where Brutus observes his servant Lucius sleeping soundly and feels jealous because Brutus himself cannot have the sound sleep as his servant because of his responsibilities and duties. I'll come back to that. This is from a contemporary of Shakespeare, Thomas Dekker, an English dramatist and a writer who wrote, "Sleep is the golden chain that ties health and our bodies," simply meaning that sleep is so vital for our health and well-being. The simple fact that we all spend 1/3 of our lives in sleep gives us a clear message that sleep is an important biological function. What is sleep? Sleep is defined as a reduced state of awareness and reduced responsiveness. Sleep is a necessary biological rhythm linked to dark and light phases of the day and our activity level. When there's light, we are awake, and we are active. When we are active, we tend to be awake. And when it is dark and we are less active, we feel sleepy. Simple as that. The other most important thing that most of us don't realize, or that the general perception, is that sleep is an active process. The general perception of sleep is that it's an on and off switch. But it's rather similar to an orchestra, where some of the players are louder and some of the players are maybe quieter. Much the same way, the brain also, certain regions of the brain would be very active during sleep, and certain regions are not very active. And when we are awake, those regions which were active during sleep becomes quieter and less active, and vice versa. Good to know about the sleep architecture, and this is a typical sleep cycle. Every one of us in a typical night would have 4 or 5 of these cycles, as each sleep cycle would go on for about 90 minutes average. And sleep cycle starts with our superficial sleep, which is light sleep, N1, and then shifts to N2, which is still within the light sleep, little deeper, and then we all shift to our deep sleep, which is called N3 sleep. That is where the delta waves appear on the EEG. And then from N3, the deep sleep, we shift to REM sleep, which is rapid eye movement sleep, which is the phase where we dream. That is called dream sleep. I don't mean to say that you all dream only in REM sleep, but dreams with a narrative would occur in REM sleep. And this is what I have been talking to. Each sleep cycles would repeat. Each in a given night there will be 4 or 5 sleep cycles, and this graph shows how we shift from lighter sleep to deep sleep, and from deep sleep we shift to REM sleep. Towards the initial part of our sleep, we have more deep sleep, and towards the latter part of the sleep, we would have more REM sleep. So this is why I just want to highlight the importance of sleeping, the adequate duration of sleep, because even this deep sleep as well as REM sleep is very important for our health. And I'll tell you how and why. These are the EEG recordings during sleep. On top we have the wakeful state, low voltage, high frequency, beta waves, and then when you are drowsy, the typical alpha waves are prominent there. And then shifting on to stage 1 sleep, theta waves, and then stage 2 sleep spindles appear, and then we go down to deep sleep. That is where your delta waves would appear. And then from deep sleep we shift to REM sleep, and if you look carefully, the REM sleep, the EEG pattern is very much similar to your wakeful state, but you're actually dreaming in that state. Interesting. Why sleep matters? There are a whole array of reasons why sleep should matter to our health. It is during sleep that the body repairs its tissues, so that is for our restoration. During sleep, you consolidate your memories, and sleep enhances creativity. Sleep improves emotional resilience and mental well-being. Sleep regulates our metabolism and hormonal rhythms. You know your cortisol, which would be at its lowest in the night around 12 midnight, and it will peak around 9 a.m. in the morning. And there are other hormonal imbalances which can occur with lack of sleep. One good example is that satiety and hunger. Leptin is the satiety hormone, and there's a hormone called ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone. When you're sleep deprived, this balance shifts towards ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone. So when you're sleep deprived, you will eat more with an associated sugar craving as well. Another important thing about sleep and hormones, particularly for men, they have found that there was a study which showed that if you sleep less than 5 hours on a regular basis, your testosterone levels will drop. Alarming. Compared to people who sleep 7 or 8 hours. Sleep boosts your immune system, so it protects you from infections. And sleep promotes cardiovascular health. And finally, and most importantly, sleep improves overall health, and there's plenty of evidence for that. This particular review article from the journal Sleep has shown us the link between sleep duration and all-cause mortality. And it has shown us that short sleepers, those who sleep less than 5 hours or less per night, have a 12% greater chance of dying compared to people who sleep the recommended duration for their age. Usually for all adults, it's 7 or 8 hours. And I'll come back to that. Sleep and cardiovascular health. Insufficient sleep can harm your heart health. And the evidence is so compelling that American Heart Association has added healthy sleep to its life's essential 8 to lower the heart attack and the stroke risk. And this particular article appeared in the Journal of Circulation has given us this alarming fact. Every 1 hour per night decrease in sleep below the recommended duration for our age is associated with 6% higher risk of total cardiovascular disease. So I was talking to you about sleep and in general how it affects our health. But my task today is to talk about sleep and brain health. Sleep is absolutely instrumental in cognitive function, mental clarity, and the ability to concentrate and learn new information. During sleep, your brain deals with information received during the day and it consolidates memories. So it's like, sleep is like the save button. What you have learned during the day is saved during your deep sleep. So this is very important for school children and for undergraduates. If you're studying for an exam, you need to sleep well. You need to sleep well. But what happens? Usually, when there's an exam, you don't sleep well. And that's a mistake. Sleep, it is during sleep that toxic waste byproducts are removed from the brain. And it is during sleep that plaque-forming amyloids and tau proteins get cleared. And you know very well that these proteins are associated with future risk of dementia, with Alzheimer's disease. And REM sleep has been shown to enhance your learning, memory, and emotional well-being. This particular study, which appeared in Nature Neuroscience back in 2007, has shown us a very interesting and very important fact. A deficit in the ability to form new human memories without sleep. Actually, they have taken a group of students and allowed them to sleep the full night, 8 hours. And there's another control, the other group, which they didn't allow to sleep at all. So they were up all night. And the next day, they measured their ability to form new memories. And there was a 40% less. The ability was 40% less in the sleep-deprived group. So that is a huge number. 40% less performance and 40% less ability for you to retain your memories, form new memories. And this can make a huge difference with your exams and exam results and performance in an exam. Sleep well and reduce your risk of dementia. This is another study, a Harvard study done in 2014 involving nearly 3,000 individuals aged over 65, and they have examined the relationship between their sleep and the future risk of developing dementia. And then that study has shown us that individuals who slept 5 hours or less per night were twice as likely to develop dementia in the future. Sleep and mental health. another very important area that we should be talking about. Research has discovered that sleep has profound effects on emotional well-being and mental health. Lack of sleep is especially harmful to the consolidation of positive emotional content, and that obviously can lead to depression, risk factor for depression. Sleep is closely connected to mental health and has demonstrated links to many psychiatric disorders like depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, and many other psychiatric conditions. And this picture shows the bi-directional relationship between sleep and mental health. If you are a poor sleeper or if you don't sleep well, that increases your fatigue, and that would lead to difficulty focusing, and that would increase your stress levels and worry, and that can in turn lead to declining mental health. So you see that this sets a vicious cycle, and it initiates a negative feedback loop which can worsen sleep and mental health. So your poor mental health in turn can cause poor sleep. So that is your that is a vicious cycle. Yeah. So you must have been waiting with all these figures I have shown you to know how much sleep you really need. Well, these are for children, don't worry too much. But maybe if you're children, toddlers, it's 9 to 16 hours. Preschool, it's 8 to 14 hours. But more importantly, if you're children, school age, 6 to 12, which means primary school, 9 to 11 hours. And teenagers, this is your middle school, up to O levels, 8 to 10 hours. So if you're doing O level, if your child is doing O levels, get them to sleep 8 to 10 hours. That's the recommendation from the National Sleep Foundation. And when it comes to adults, battery. When it comes to adults, young adults and adults, this is applicable for all of us, it is 7 to 9 hours. You can think back and see whether we are sleeping that amount. 7 to 9 hours, average 8 hours. And most people think that 6 hours sleep is adequate, but that's a myth. You can see that even an older adult, age 65 and plus, they need 7 hours of sleep. And at least half of them need 7 hours of sleep. And actually, the proportion which can manage with 6 hours is considerable. So for some, after retirement, you can manage with 6 hours. So this is a summary of a sleep requirement. This is a recommendation of the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and the National Sleep Foundation. For school children, 8 to 10 hours. Adults, for all of us, most of us here, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. And for elderly, they can manage with 6 hours because sleep requirement is little less when you're elderly. But this reminds us, or this would prompt us to think carefully whether we all sleep this much. Well, actually, as a society, we don't sleep adequately. Initially I have mentioned that Shakespeare and Thomas Dekker, those writers, half a millennia ago, have got it right. But we, as a society, doesn't seem to understand that fact that sleep is important. Maybe we have forgotten amidst our busy schedules. Maybe we are too busy, and actually, in this day and age, people want to do more, achieve more, earn more, and as a result, we have compromised amount of sleep. And that has led to this syndrome, insufficient sleep syndrome. If you Google, you will find that. And that is a common condition, actually. You see, a condition where individuals consistently fail to get enough sleep, less than what is recommended for their age. And actually, this is 5 hours or less on a regular basis, voluntary sleep restriction. And this is a global problem, becoming increasingly common, quite rampant in US. And if you don't sleep adequately on a regular basis, you'll become sleepier, you'll be irritable, you're anxious, and you will be unable to concentrate, and your performance is affected. Common symptoms of sleep deprivation: daytime sleepiness. This is a very common problem among many. Well, actually, if you take people with excessive daytime sleepiness, the most common reason behind that is that you don't sleep enough in the night. There are various other conditions that we should consider, but number one condition to exclude would be check with the patient the number of hours they sleep. If you are sleep deprived, you have more fatigue, you could be irritable, you have trouble thinking, focusing, and remembering, and headaches. Sleep deprivation is a common trigger for headaches, particularly migraine. We all know that migraines, sleep deprivation is a very important trigger. And then a very important fact, if you are sleep deprived, you have a slower reaction time. And this is particularly important for driving. These statistics are from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, US, and that shows an alarming figure. Approximately 100,000 car crashes in US each year are attributed to driver fatigue and sleepiness. So you can see the impact of sleepiness on the society as a whole. So chronic sleep loss, I have talked about enough dangers, and they have found that dangers of chronic sleep loss are similar to driving under the influence of alcohol. Actually, there should be a mechanism for the police to catch people who are sleepy, but there's no proper way to catch them. If they catch alcohol, why not sleep deprived? With this as a similar effect. So finally, I would like to give you some sleep hygiene tips, which is very important. Establish a regular bedtime. Go to bed same time every day. Just because it's the weekend, don't delay your sleep. I mean, that upsets your circadian rhythms. If you can go to bed same time every day, that's the best. Get exposed to natural light throughout the day. Go out and be with the nature. And if you can expose yourself to daylight in the morning hours, that has shown to help with your sleep. Avoid caffeine and other stimulants, especially in the latter part of the day, which will impair sleep. Regular exercise is definitely helpful. If you exercise during the day, that's helpful for a good night's sleep. But when you exercise, remember that you need to exercise during the daytime, but not in the night. But our people have got it wrong, and I see a lot of people after their work, 6 o'clock, 7 p.m. in the night, they are jogging, which is not advisable. They go to the gym after work, but that's not ideal. It is advised that you have to stop your exercise at least 4 hours before the bedtime. That's the recommendation. Staying away from bright lights and the screens. That has become a habit. Either you're with your phone or the laptop or a tab or the computer screen, all have blue light, which will mislead your suprachiasmatic nucleus in your head which will identify blue light as the daytime. So you are giving your brain a wrong message. Please be please be awake because it's daytime. That's the message those blue light give into your brain. That is very bad for a quality sleep, and it might delay your sleep onset. So stay away from bright lights. Your TV screen is has less blue light compared to your tab, phone screens, iPad, computer screen, laptop, whatever. So at least 1 hour before the bedtime, you have to switch all the gadgets and keep them aside. Make sure your sleep environment is comfortable. That's another factor. If there's noise and light and all that disturbances, that would not set the stage for an ideal sleep. And don't look at the clock if you wake up in the middle of the night. That's another piece of advice they give, because if every time you wake up in the night, if you have a habit of looking at the clock, that will not help you fall asleep back again. So with these tips from the National Sleep Foundation, I will conclude my talk. So with these tips, it reminds me of a popular saying, night, night, sleep tight. Don't let the bed bugs bite. So I wish you good health and good sleep. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Dr. Waidyasekara, for emphasizing the need to prioritize rest and recovery in our busy lives. Next, we invite Professor K.D. Pathirana, Professor in Medicine and Consultant Neurologist, to deliver a talk on aging with good memory, a growing challenge in today's aging population.
Good afternoon. Although Dr. Janaka said to sleep, that is not now. So it started with neonatal period, and now it's aging, and that lecture was given to me appropriately. This conversation was about to happen tonight, but luckily I met Dr. Janaka Waidyasekara yesterday on the way, and he said, no, tomorrow is the lecture. So thank you, Dr. Janaka Waidyasekara and the team, for inviting me for this lecture. I am going to talk about a few things about dementia, memory impairment in elderly. Dementia is defined as a progressive decline in thinking, memory, reasoning and behavior, and affecting the day-to-day activities. Now all of us sometimes say, okay, my memory is poor, but it doesn't generally affect the day-to-day activities, then it's not dementia. And on the other hand, mild cognitive impairment is a transitional stage preceding dementia, and again there can be defects in one of these domains. It's not memory, it's memory, language and judgment. But from mild cognitive dysfunction to dementia is not a smooth transition. Some people just remain as mild cognitive impairment, and others progress rapidly to dementia. Now many people believe aging is a reason for dementia, and for this reason most of our patients come very late for medical care, because many family members think so it's due to aging, and when they become a problem only they were brought to the doctors. Okay, what is the burden of the problem? 57 million cases worldwide and 10 million new diagnosed patients with dementia annually, and $1.3 trillion are spent for the care of patients with dementia. And Alzheimer's disease account for about 60 to 70%, and women, like in many other cases, bear more disease burden and caregiver burden. This you might not picture very well, but if you see the age groups, between 60 to 64 age, the prevalence is less than 1%. And up to 75 to 79%, it is 10 to 15%, but 80 to 90%, it gradually grows up. And if you are living more than 90 years old, you have a 33% of chance of having dementia. But think the positive way. 66% will not have dementia. So live long with a good memory. Okay, risk factors. What is good? There is saying that what's good for heart is what's good for brain. So most of the risk factors which will affect the heart, health of the heart, will affect the health of the brain also. So all these are risk factors. Age more than 65, family history, presence of ApoE gene, then those are not modifiable risk factors. But all the others, we have some control over it. So dementia is more or less preventable if you work hard. Hypertension, already Dr. Samir mentioned about it, and diabetes, obesity, smoking, excessive alcohol, and the social inactivity, depression and social isolation is also a risk factor for dementia. Initially, you get cognitive and functional decline. Now, this was not noticed at the very beginning, and that is the biggest problem. So, it's maybe forgetting your car keys, which may not be unusual for some people. Then you get forgetfulness, confusion, disorientation, and difficulty with tasks and problem solving. And then you get troubles with language and conversations. And then there may be changes in the mood and behavior like anxiety, personality shifts, withdrawal from social and work activities, and so forth. And at later stages, they get hallucinations, wandering, loss of balance, financial management. Of course, I have seen financial management is something which bring the parents to the doctor, one of the things, and apathy. And in summary, they say initially you forget to close the zip up, and later you forget to pull the zip down, and finally it doesn't matter whether it's up or down. So that summarizes the behavioral changes. Okay. Now there is another aspect to it. Many people, when there is a change in behavior or memory, they were labeled as psychiatric patients. And it is very important to know, for the healthcare workers, to know when something is more likely to be psychiatric or when it's more likely to be organic. It is generally taught that you must suspect a neurological diagnosis in apparently psychiatric patient if it's of recent onset, and if there is associated fever, seizures, cognitive dysfunction, and for doctors, any focal neurological sign. Although we think the people who had psychiatric illness has a poor memory and poor cognition, it is not generally so. Many psychiatric patients have very good cognitive functions. Okay, the next stage is any memory loss will also be brought to you saying that it's dementia, because dementia is now better known, and especially the the generation of children, they know about dementia and they just think, doctor, this patient has dementia. But dementia more or less is untreatable. But you must always think whether there is any treatable cause or any other diagnosis for dementia, so-called dementia. Again, if it's a recent onset and rapid progression, you must think of other treatable conditions. Cognitive defect limited to one location or adjacent location, and this is why it is very important for us to examine the cognitive function separately. Apart from doing mini-mental scale and MOCA, you must do lobe functions if you want to diagnose it to see whether it's a dementia or any other cognitive defect. Of course, if and of course fever and seizures, and in some instances we may be doing EEGs, and if there are EEG changes, they are very likely to be well, there can be other diagnosis other than Alzheimer's dementia. And recent history of head trauma, you must always think of other diagnosis, especially subdural hemorrhage. And apparent psychiatric or impaired memories with any other illness, you must always first see whether it's part of the systemic illness that is causing memory impairment. Of course, you have to assess the nervous system adequately, and other systems and associated diseases, and mini-mental scale or 3MS or Montreal cognitive assessment. They will assess the degree of dementia and whether there is a dementia or not, but it is not a good tool to diagnose whether it could be some other illness. Now, for example, take this patient, a 50-year-old man who was taking treatment for psychiatric illness was referred to us as there was poor response to psychiatric treatment, and he had been a vegan for a long time and had a goiter. He is not oriented in place, time and person, and had impaired memory for recent events. So definitely this patient is not a psychiatrist, he has got an organic illness, and vitamin B12 deficiency is a well-known cause of cognitive impairment, but in addition to that, this patient had a positive antibodies for anti-thyroglobulin and thyroid peroxidase. So the important lesson is any cognitive impairment, you should never label them as psychiatric. Okay, I mentioned that Montreal cognitive assessment is not a good tool to localize the lesion, but having said that, to some extent you can say if the executive functions are affected, it may be dorsolateral or frontal cortex. Visuospatial problems are mainly right parietal lobe and occipital lobe. Attention working memory will be frontal lobes, and orbitofrontal, of course, behavioral changes also. Language, Broca's area, insular cortex, and memory, hippocampus and frontal lobes, and orientation, temporal or frontal lobe. So to some extent you can say from the domain affected whether it is one domain or one area or whether multiple areas are affected. Typically in dementia, the areas, different areas are affected. Right. So most of these these patients, although we have listed out these investigations, depending on the stage, we may or may not consider some of those investigations. But one important thing, especially if there is a history of trauma, is a CT scan, and it may show something like that, which is completely treatable and it is not dementia. So other things may be useful, EEG in some cases, full blood count, full blood, fasting blood sugar, lipid profile, TSH, triple antibodies and HIV antibodies, ESR, ANA in young people and serum TP antibodies. These are the things generally we do, but there are sometimes we may have to do other investigations. What are the types of dementias? Most of you know about Alzheimer's disease, and there are these neuronal tangles and plaques and tangles due to amyloid deposition. And vascular dementia is generally due to multiple cerebral infarcts. Sometimes they may be lacunous infarcts, small lacunar infarcts spread all over the brain in different parts, or it could be a critical area infarct in a crucial area which involves with the memory. And Lewy body dementia is due to some abnormal deposits, and frontotemporal dementia is in the younger patients and due to a defect in proteins. And you have in elderly patients generally you have a mixed set of pathologies. Right. Our main aim is to talk about the prevention. Like most of these were discussed in the previous lectures also, physical activity, aerobic and resistance exercises, and Mediterranean diet or Mediterranean like diet, which was discussed again, and mental stimulations with puzzles, reading, learning, and social engagement, connectedness, and all those things will lower the risk. In fact, we did a research about 3 years ago among the patients living in these elderly homes, and we found that those who are involved with these all those religious activities, social activities, Shramadana and all that retain their cognitive functions to a great extent than those who are alone. There are no family visits, the family doesn't visit them, and that type of patients will have impaired cognitive functions. But apart from the behavioral therapies, there are other important medical interventions that we can use to delay or prevent dementia. As was mentioned, managing blood pressure, diabetes and cholesterol is important like in any other neurological as well as non-neurological cardiac ones. That is more important. Quit smoking was mentioned by Sami, and reduce alcohol. Of course, alcohol in moderation is the one which is given in the book, but for non-alcoholics, it is never recommended to drink. You must always, sometimes people ask this question, and sometimes son says, තාත්තා බොන්නේම නැහැ, බොනවත් පොඩ්ඩක්වත් බොන්නේ නැහැ, ඒකද හේතුව. That is because the son probably wants to drink. Anyway, it is not to advise those who are not drinking to drink, but those who drink should cut it down or stop. Depression and dementia. There are different relationships between depression and dementia. Depression itself can cause a cognitive impairment, cognitive slowness. But if you encourage the people to get the answers, generally their cognitive functions are all right. And patients with dementia, initial stages they get depression because they identify their defect and they get depressed. But when you improve dementia in depressed patients, when you treat depression in patients with dementia, sometimes their functioning gets better. And Another controversial topic is detect and manage hearing loss. Again, we have found some patients with hearing loss. Their dementia is diagnosed late because family thinks it's because of the hearing defect that they are not functioning well. The evidence, of course, for correcting hearing loss and prevention dementia is less, but anyway, if the patient has a hearing impairment, that has to be treated, and the problems of functioning which can occur with dementia will be less if the patient has a normal hearing. And we are talking about interventions one by one, but it has been found that when we combine all, the results would be much better in preventing dementia. And for elderly people, so multi-pronged approach should be attempted, and this should actually should not be started only at old age. Young people should start doing exercises, living a healthy lifestyle, having adequate sleep, and correct diet, at least Mediterranean-like diet, and so forth, to prevent dementia at later stages. Now, I will wind up with these things which are really evidence-based. Physical activity, evidence is moderate, but recommendation is that it's a strong recommendation that they should be. Tobacco cessation, again, it's a strong recommendation in prevention of dementia. Mediterranean diet or Mediterranean-like diet, moderate evidence, but it may be useful. Recommendation, they say, okay, but we know all the other benefits of Mediterranean diet, so it is recommended. Hypertension control, yes, it is strongly recommended that it need to be controlled. And diabetic management, yes, evidence level is mixed, but it's a strong recommendation to treat diabetes in such patients. Useful interventions, but evidence is limited in cognitive training, that is patients who have early cognitive impairment can be trained to do various things. For example, if your calculations are poor, you can use a calculator, you can train to use a calculator, or making a list. Now, talking about the list, sometimes your wife will give you a list of shopping list, and you not only forget the shopping list, you forget where the list has been kept. So that type of problems also occur, but that's generally useful. Alcohol in moderation, weight management, although there is no evidence, because of the other health benefits, it's important, and balanced diet and dyslipidemia management. And importantly, there are things which are not recommended and to some extent are harmful. These are very frequently used by some of the prescribers. Vitamin supplements, very expensive, sometimes more expensive than the drugs that is required for the treatment of a disease. Vitamin B, E, or polyunsaturated fatty acids, fish oil, multivitamins have no place, and sometimes they can do harm, they say. Having said that, there are clear instances where there is a B12 deficiency or where there is a vitamin deficiency, they may be useful. Antidepressants solely for prevention, although depression is considered as a possible cause for dementia, treating with antidepressants in those who are not depressed has not helped in prevention. Hearing aid, again, the connection between the impairment of hearing and dementia is now no longer accepted. Anyway, hearing aids will not improve the dementia. But mind you, for the patients, improvement of the activities of daily living, hearing aids are very useful. And finally, what we have found, they say there is insufficient social activities. Again, they say there is insufficient evidence, but benefits. It is beneficial for well-being of the patient. So clinical takeaways: prevention should be started early, and there should be an integrated action. And healthcare workers should encourage lifestyle changes in midlife. Hope you are even earlier than midlife, that's fine. Screen for vascular risks, depression and isolation, and educate families and caregivers on warning signs. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Pathirana, for that insightful and hopeful perspective on cognitive aging.
As we conclude today's program, it's time to acknowledge and appreciate everyone who contributed to making this event meaningful and impactful. To deliver the vote of thanks, I would invite Dr. Mohideen, Consultant Neurologist.
Yes, I won't take too long. So we have to thank a few people. First of all, I think we have to thank Dr. Janaka Waidyasekara for organizing this great event. I think it is all 99% his effort, with all others contributing. So in addition, of course, we thank the Galle Medical Association, ASN, and the World WFN with the help of Professor Tissa Vijayaratne. Of course, our speakers today, Thilina, Professor Pathirana, myself included with Dr. Janaka, have contributed to this program. But this would not have been successful without the attendance of the consultant, nursing officers, and the medical students today. Last but not least, our two computers, Kalpana and Navada, for doing a wonderful job, and our sponsors for the day, P&J Health, for delivering a snack during the event. I again thank you all for your patient attendance. Thank you.
As we close today's event, we want to sincerely thank all our speakers, guests, and attendees for making World Brain Day 2025 a memorable and a meaningful gathering. Let us carry forward the message of brain health for all ages into our daily practice and community outreach. Thank you and have a wonderful day.